All right. Welcome back to the Word and Journey podcast. Stories that shape us and make us think and touch on the things most important to us. So, I am Moses Barnaby back in the studio with you. I missed last week. I got sick, so I took the night off. I'm exercising healthy boundaries. I recommend you all do the same because sometimes we need to. But I am still reading interesting things, and here to make commentary on them because that's what we do when we have the microphone is we make commentary on random things. So I am pouring through The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson per the recommendation of many friends over the years, and giving you my impressions. Generally speaking, I am enjoying it, to be very broad with it. I mean, I'm still listening to the audiobook, so there's that. I admittedly maybe the audiobook medium is giving a different experience to it, or it's giving the book an edge. I did have the book in my house physically from the library at one point. I think at some point I thought, oh yes, me with my 3 kids and my wife and my private practice and my other books that I'm trying to write, I will be able to finish 1,000 pages of fantasy in 3 weeks or less. I got through the first prologue, which I enjoyed, but it's a large book if you've ever seen it. Anyway, so I'm doing the audiobook, which is nice, and it does the work for me. So there's that. So generally speaking, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the world building. I'm finding the characters interesting. It's getting to the point in the story where now there's multiple different plot conflicts that are starting to interact a little bit, and that's a fun part of a story for me when different threads are starting to come together. So an interesting point that stands out to me is the use of sacred texts in this particular world building scenario. So one of the POV characters, Dalinar, the High Prince Dalinar, he is he is older. He is suspected of going mad. In When a high storm happens, he has visions, which he experiences them as visions, and other people experience them as him having seizures or fits or something. So he's getting all of these ideas, and they are challenging the conventional norms. He's also been reading or having read to him The Way of Kings, which is an ancient book, an ancient text. I don't get the sense that it's a holy text as much as just an ancient historical text of very interesting import, controversial, so very interesting that way. But it is a code of conduct for royalty, for knights, for the military, and he's taking it to heart very, very, very seriously. And this is setting him at odds with the ruling caste of his day. And I'm enjoying this conflict. I find it to tap into the inner conflicts and asking questions of what is right and wrong, what is normal, who am I. Um, there's in a sense, a nod to the deconstructionist in there. Either it's like the deconstructionist or the I'm converting to something better, when there's a sense of awakening. And this gets depicted really well. He goes on a battle run and he puts on his shard plate armor and he's all ready to go back and inspire the men. He's been out of action for a while. And so he's going to go back and do the thing that he used to be really good at and really famous for. And he goes in and he starts to really enjoy it. And then he realizes what he's doing. He's killing a bunch of people and he's ending life, and he's being a war machine. And there's this moment where he sees himself differently, or he sees the world differently. And the way that growth and insight tend to go is once you see something, you can't unsee it. And there's not a guarantee when or how this or that person will be able to see or attain that enlightenment. Sometimes they go looking for it, sometimes that's thrust upon them, but once it happens, it can't be undone. And it seems like Dalinar has been having moments like that in small degree, but this one's a very major one where this thing that he's meant to do and that he's being expected to do and he used to love and used to be really good at, he now sees it in a very different way. He sees it as the opposite of what it was. He thought it was this glorious thing to charge into battle and conquer and conquer, and now he's realizing I'm slaughtering people, and that's monstrous. And yeah, he just can't unsee that. So I appreciate the depiction. It's a really well done depiction of the interchange that can lead to great insight. It's what happens when a conversion experience happens, whether it's a conversion into or out of a faith tradition, or from one thought process to another, from one paradigm to another. At some point, a variety of life circumstances leads us to a point where we see the world differently and can't unsee it. And that is how people learn. Is we come to a place where we are a combination of open to and needing to see things differently. Or what I experienced in my faith journey was coming to a point towards the end of Protestantism where I was realizing that I need a theology that encompasses the whole life experience, and I wasn't finding it there. I did find it in Orthodox Christianity, and so that was one of many aspects of my conversion story there, which is interesting. There's another fun moment where apparently the knights and the royalty in this world, they wear the shard plate armor, they have their shard blades that are like their super suits. When one is wearing them, one is energized and made extra strong, and the the shard blades, they're the swords that they conjure up. They're extra special. They do some extra fun things, and they're used for war. And Dalinar dares to ask the question of, what if they were used for other things? What if we endowed this strength to other people in other professions? And to illustrate and explore his point, he goes and he digs a ditch. He digs a latrine ditch for his men, and he does like 20 men's. He does what 20 men could do in a week in by himself in a day, using his shard blade. And everybody's like, what is he doing? That's weird. But he learns and discovers something. And all of this together very much captures the dynamic of one who is converting, one who is learning, one who is growing. And as happens properly, it's happening in a very natural, organic way. No one is forcing it upon him. In fact, he is having to, in a sense, force his learning upon others, because he's not being understood, not by everyone. And there's a lot of challengers to what he's doing, and which I think tends to be the way of enlightenment and learning too. Is when once you learn something, it sets you apart from the rest of the world. And you can either stifle what you're learning and squelch it and bury it and go back to where you were, but usually at great cost to your own self, and something inside you dies. Or you have to follow what you are learning, and it usually does. It sets you apart from society as it is currently ordered. And for me, looking back through my tradition, looking through the biblical texts, the prophets, they were they were seen as crazy because they did crazy, or we could say extreme things. They did things that did not fit into the normal social order, because they now had a perspective that the normal social order did not have either. So, slight nod to those who are just outside of society. Again, I'm not going to say this absolutely, but a lot of these people who are outside of society, outside the normal social, the normal social order, there are some insights that they have that we might benefit from giving some attention to. So we should maybe go talk to them. There's many other interesting things going on. I'm most recently in a section there. So there's a long section just with the boys, Kaladin, Dalinar, Adolin, and watching their adventures. And finally we got back to Shallan as she's back as the ward of Brightness Yasna, and she's learning how to do all of these things. And her conflict is, I don't know, I'm feeling this one in a really deep way, because it feels the most awkward, because she's planning a betrayal. She's planning to steal a soul caster from her mistress, from her teacher, which was the plan going into it. But then she's discovering that she's really liking being there. She had to convince Yasna to take her on as a student, and she loves learning. She really wants to be there and to learn to be a scholar, and she's really starting to respect this older woman. And there's a bit of a friendship developing, but all the time she's thinking, and I have to betray her. It's just So rich. I mean, and we note this in the clinical context when betrayal trauma happens, and like the chaos and drama of like multiple relationships and trauma reenactments and just cycling in and out of many relationships. It's super stressful to live through in real life, but there's also something kind of compelling about it. And I mean, we watch soap operas, we watch Lost, we watch Battlestar Galactica, we watch these stories where it's like a lot of relationship drama and people getting in and out of relationship with each other, lying to each other, betraying each other. It's terrible in real life, but is really interesting in stories because it's just like, what's gonna happen? There's such a powerful thrill that goes with watching somebody else's relationship drama. So anyway, so for me in this story, Shalon captures that itch the best because of what she's planning to do. And again, I have not read the story, so I don't know what's going to happen. I could see it going either way, where she decides to do it or to not do it. But anyway, no spoilers. I'll get there. I'll tell you what I think of it when I get there. The other character that I'm appreciating is Kaladin, as he's working to win over his bridgemen. He does everything. He trains in front of them to inspire them. He rescues their wounded off the field. He scrounges up food to feed them. He induces them to tell stories and tell their stories. There's something really powerfully connecting about people telling their stories to each other, as well as suffering together and struggling together. So there's actually, I mean, his captors don't realize this necessarily, but there's actually a lot of elements that are required to make a really tight community. Shared purpose, yeah, we want to survive. Shared suffering, done. Telling each other stories, they're working on it. Being kind to each other, learning each other's names, humanizing each other. These are all things that he's bringing to his men and his characters, and it's kind of cool. Um, it's classic what we would expect from someone in his role in a story to be really heroic, to be kind of magnanimous, to be able to again see in ways that other people don't. Everyone else sees the Bridgemen as like, oh, they're slaves, they're scumbags, they're criminals, they deserve their fate. Kaladin is the one who's like, no, these are humans, they have a name, they're worth saving, and so he makes that effort. And it's a long journey for him, but I've gotten to the point in the story where he's now starting to win over their hearts, or at least intrigue them to where they're open to cooperating with him. And now he's starting to draw the attention of his superiors and the other soldiers, and there's plots against him and everything. So I'm intrigued to see where this goes, and anticipating him connecting with some of the other main characters as the threads begin to interweave. And so looking forward to that. Those sorts of moments are always fun for me when stories get brought together. um, I aspire to do that in my writing, is to have the multiple threads and have them interact. And it's challenging. It's not like moving blocks on a board. It's much more complex than that. It's because it usually involves thousands and thousands of words. But when pulled off, it's really nice. And someday if they make a movie, it's cool too. So yeah, so that's those are my impressions of Way of Kings. And yeah, so far I like it. Again, thinking what makes a book great or really good versus just enjoyable. Still exploring that. We could say so. A book like this, definitely the world building is really complex. I really appreciate that. Uh, Sanderson's incorporation of religion, spirituality into it, very much in a in a friendly way. It doesn't at all feel super preachy or overdone. It very much feels like this is a natural part of the world, and so the characters get to interact with concepts. There's this really lovely dialogue between Shalon and Yasna about why Yasna doesn't believe in God, and you know however I personally might agree or disagree with the character's conclusions, it's a really nicely done scene where the different arguments are presented as just very natural to the characters and their setting. So um, I think that's kind of cool. It's nice to see that element portrayed in a sensible way. So there's that. Uh, I mean, some of the world building features. I mean, are kind of cool. I mean, the whole thing with the stormlight. I mean, that's a cool, unique thing. The whole concept of the spring. Um, it's kind of weird, but and again, it fits into the world. It feels consistent with the world and everything. So yeah, it's an interesting world. Am I reading this more for the world, for the characters, of the plot? I'm not really reading it for the wordsmithing. It's not really that kind of novel. I mean, it's nice, it's well done, but not really that kind of novel. Um, yeah, probably still reading it mostly for the characters and the plot, and very comfortably enjoying the world building and how that fits into it. So it's that kind of story. So yeah, so if you haven't read it, I might be the last person on earth who has not read it. So I might not be talking to anyone here. But if you haven't read it, maybe consider picking it up. It's kind of interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. Um, yeah, otherwise, there's other books that are going on too, which I will do more episodes on these coming up. But I'm working through a book called The Wake by Paul Kingsnorth, and that one is definitely wordsmithy, and I'm excited to bring some attention to that one. Another story took in so the Titan series, the DC Titan series, um, with Brenton Thwaites. So I've taken in 3 seasons of that. I will be talking about that at some point too. Uh, as a counselor in my day job, I'm really appreciating that one for how they depict like the inner life and inner struggle, and there's some cool redemptive arcs that go on there. So we'll be hearing from that one at some point, and uh, and some others. I also am currently watching, what is it, Blade Runner 2049. Um, I mean, semi randomly, I'd been a little bit interested in it, and then it's obviously several years old, but and it only just now came free to Amazon, so that's why I'm watching it. But it's proven interesting so far. Again, kind of talking around like what is the line between human and non-human. Those sorts of stories are really interesting for me. So there will be more comments from there. And there's also coming up soon, I'm doing a compilation project that I've never done something like this before, so it's been fun. But there's been some other guests on the Word and Journey podcast. Some of those episodes will show up here in the YouTube channel eventually, but you can also check out the podcast. We've covered The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis, 1984 by George Orwell, Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Now I'm releasing episodes on Boy's Life by Robert McCammon, and I'm getting to talk with the different guests about our favorite holiday stories. So it's a fun, lighthearted, family-friendly, here's some memories and everything episode about Christmas, nativity, etc. So that should be coming out within the next couple weeks, and I hope you all enjoy that very much. The day I'm recording this is near the end of November, NaNoWriMo 2022. This was a weird experience for me. I was excited to pick up again and do some major edits on the novel that I started this past summer about the dragons and vampires. And then I decided in my day job to expand from a solo practice into a group practice. And so suddenly NaNoWriMo time got taken up with writing things like like job descriptions and operations manuals and filling out forums and talking with CPAs and a whole bunch of adulting, grown up, really responsible manager sort of stuff. So it didn't feel like a very artistic month, and some of me feel sad about that. However, I was actually writing uh, in some very interesting new ways. So I think technically it's good for me as a writer to be still like putting words out. Very much not the fiction genre, but it's like stretching different writing muscles. So I'm gonna presume that it's good for me as a writer to sometimes write legal documents. I'm not sure how that helps yet, but that's what happened this year. So I had that experience, and will still be working toward edits on the novel anyway, because I love it so, and I'm excited to bring it to you. Sometime soon I will read more snippets. But anyway, that's my update for this week. Things that I'm writing, things that I'm reading, things that I'm thinking about. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Way of Kings if you're reading it, or any of these other stories as I bring them out, or on the writing process in general, or on the holidays, or on religion or politics. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or follow me on my Patreon, patreon.com/MosesBernabe. You can follow me on Instagram at Moses Bernabe and receive more updates and things like that. Anyway, Thank you and good night. I love you all and hope to see you again very soon. Goodbye.